Welcome, everyone, once again to the Sleeping with Sonja podcast, and a very special welcome to someone who somehow I locked eyes with across a room and somehow became my soulmate pretty immediately. The beautiful Ms. Amy Loughren. Amy, welcome.
You know, doing a podcast in our pajamas. I mean, can we please talk about that? Just start right out with that because we're both nurses.
This is it.
We usually live in scrubs.
That's it.
So being able to do a podcast in my pajamas, I just feel like I'm at work anyway.
This is like literally, I mean, yes, yeah. I wear vending machine pajamas to work every single day. So this is...
But I don't have slippers like yours.
No.
Like, come on, I'm so jelly.
Although your Juicy Couture pink color is radiant on you, but I think what radiates from you is very much from within. And I'm so thankful that you're here with me today. Before we dive deep and talk about all of the things, I want to introduce you properly to our audience so that they know who you are. Amy Loughren is a trauma nurse, hypnotherapist, Reiki master, and quantum timeline regressionist. You may recognize Amy as the good nurse for her role in assisting the arrest and prosecution of serial murderer Charlie Cullen. Amy's story is now a Netflix movie. Since then, Amy has made the mission to address the insidious grip of cumulative trauma, burnout, and caregiver fatigue throughout the healthcare community. So, low-key, laid back, no big deal?
Yeah, it's really challenging, though, because I want to have these moments in my life where, like, even now, like, it's a joyful time. You and I get to hang out. We get to talk about fun shit. Mm-hmm. And it's so dark. Literally everything that my life started from was something of darkness that became such beautiful light. So,
you know what, Amy? I think the reality is you were the light. You were the light. You created the light. And that is something that is so evident now after meeting you and knowing you for the last year.
Thank you. It was funny, and not funny. Our conversation this morning, our breakfast conversation, was how my childhood really prepped me for being around a monster. I was around a monster as a child and learned how to deal with that and learned how to navigate that part of my life. And so when I came into contact with Charlie Cullen, who people do believe is a monster, I was already comfortable there. And it's very interesting, how our lives, mine in particular, started out as navigating something that no one would want to navigate as a child, and thought that I had come through that through taking care of my mental health. And thank goodness I was in a space where I was able to then navigate something even darker with Charles Cullen.
Do you think that the basis of that childhood trauma led you into a path toward nursing?
I know it did. And, one of my first memories is something traumatic. And there were many times, like, for instance, I had a very, very intense injury to my hand when I was 3 years old. And I remember it like it was yesterday. And my parents and the doctor, I did not cry. It was not about trauma. It was about interest. Oh. I remember just being so interested in what was, that was fascinating to me, watching what the doctor was doing, I remember the overhead light, and I remember just the doctor's face over me, and he just kept saying, I cannot believe how she's not crying.
That's incredible.
Yeah. And so I think that I was always prepped to not only be a trauma nurse
Right.
or be in ICU, but I was always prepped for something bigger, more intense in my life.
How did you get to a space now where your role is healing the healer?
I don't know that I heal the healer. I don't know. The word heal itself is a little bit interesting because I think what we're doing is experiencing, and then with those experiences, we figure out what the gifts are from those experiences. Oh. And then we apply them to the next thing that comes up. So is it healing that we're doing? And I know that my philosophy about healing is much different than other people. I don't know that I've healed from the things that happened to me right. as a child or the things that happened to me during that investigation. I think that what I have done was acclimated in a way that I can then offer to other people, to myself, just these different perspectives on how to navigate those things. And I think that's the word for the day, is really navigate.
Navigate. And, I think you have muddled through these circumstances that a lesser person may not have ever survived, arguably. And you have this sort of innate ability to, it's not this toxic positivity, but you pluck the lesson and you take the lesson from each of these experiences and you carry it with you like a jewel or a memento. And I think that's a really important way to look at your own personal tragedies or past or issues and still move forth.
I also think that I am so grateful. And I think using gratitude for only the things that happen for good, which I think there is some toxic positivity that goes along with that. Yeah. Gratitude, I think right now is, it's such a buzzword. It is, and I think it's been overused. Right. But I think the gratitude that I have for people playing the roles that they did within my life. And people that come into my life play those roles so beautifully, and they help shape me in a way that there's no other way that I could do but to be grateful for them. And that doesn't mean that I wasn't traumatized.
Right. Those two things can go hand in hand.
Yes. Right. Yes. It doesn't mean that I was not struggling with mental health. It doesn't mean that it didn't affect me in ways that I didn't know whether I was going to get out alive. Right. And I mean emotionally alive. I know that even after the investigation, I had some pretty challenging, intrusive thoughts. And I look back now and I think about why I didn't act on those thoughts. And of course, I had daughters, so I would never, ever even think about harming myself.
Right.
But I did have those thoughts that would all of this be easier for me? And really, really dealing with that type of guilt that I had, that I was carrying, that I didn't see it sooner. I think that there are times when there's no other way out in your mind, that hopelessness, and that's a really, really dark path. But when you get on the other side of that, and you get to see that even someone like Charlie gave me so many gifts in my life. Right. I now have a platform because of a serial killer to be able to help other people with things that I was able to navigate through.
I'm covered in goosebumps as you say that right now, because the average person goes to work no matter what their job is, but especially if you go to work at the hospital, and we see the worst day of a person's life every single day. Most people don't go to the hospital because they're well.
Yeah.
So you already carry that burden and that load. No matter how much you want to disconnect or dissociate, there's a part of you that will always absorb that. And now you compound that with the fact that you have this relationship with a friend and a colleague who, the idea of such unspeakable actions to those of us who pride ourselves on attempting to save lives, that cognitive dissonance is something that most people can't ever really grasp.
Yes, and I also think about what his thoughts were going to work every day and planning not to save people's lives. His plans were completely different. We go to work to make sure that people are becoming more healthy and are hopefully going to leave our care feeling better and alive.
Right.
And to think about a serial killer planning every single day to go to work to find a way for a person to die. Yeah. And the really challenging parallel of that is that he dealt with extreme darkness in his life, extreme darkness in his family, extreme darkness and trauma that he was not able to at least transform into something that was for the better.
Right.
My path, we were on that same, we were both ICU nurses. We both even started nursing at the same time.
Wow.
And his path and my path crossing was just extraordinary in itself because there was no way that we were going to meet. I lived way up in upstate New York.
Right.
He was from Pennsylvania and working in New Jersey. For us to have even crossed paths, the stars were aligned.
And if you think about just that component of it, how in so many ways the universe aligned you with him because it was your job to stop him.
It was my role.
Whew.
Yeah, it was definitely my role. And it was his role to also give me an opportunity. And this makes me emotional because as a child, I didn't have the opportunity to make a difference. I wasn't given a choice. Yeah. And here I was as an adult meeting a monster in front of me, and I had a choice. And I took that choice and I said, I don't have to look at this person as someone that he's one-dimensional, that he's only the monster that he is. He is also a human being that is multi-layered, and I was able to see him in that way. And because of that, with that role, I was able to not be a victim of the circumstances. Wow. And remind myself that I was not a victim of my circumstances as a child.
That is intensely powerful. To know that your ability to witness the complexity of human nature and to see that even if you have similar experiences or similar trauma or similar backgrounds, that you can be the owner of your future. And that you can determine, you can create the path amid these really, I don't, for lack of a better term, fucked up things that happened in your life.
Yeah. And then I say, are they? Are they?
Ooh, that's the real.
And I think that it's very challenging for other people. My journey has been that I have come to the realization that all of these things that have molded me into understanding the gifts that I was given, it's very hard to talk about with people who have been through traumas, because I think that a lot of people make that their identity. Yeah. And it's hard to get out of that loop. Yeah. But on my journey, it was learning that loop didn't exist for me. What I have been experiencing with being on a spiritual quest to figure out all of these things brings me back to science. You and I are both geeks with science.
Biggest nerds I know.
Yeah, exactly. Yep. And I am a physics junkie.
I love it.
So
talk quantum physics to me, baby. That's
So Thomas Campbell, who worked for the Monroe Institute and who is a physicist, worked with Duke University, is one of the scientists that proved that we are in a simulation. So essentially proved that we are in a video game.
Projections.
That, yes, that we are actually an avatar. And that within this video game, we are able to go to different levels. We are able to really put the ingredients of where we want to go and really like make a recipe for ourselves of our own lives. And I love that idea of thinking of us. And have you ever played The Sims?
I didn't, because I was such a nerd that I was never a video game nerd. I was you have a book, you better read it nerd. But I know, I know like, The Sims. You build their world.
Yes, you build
the pieces.
Yes, you build the world, you build your avatar, and then there's this diamond above your head that is spinning, and it changes colors according to what is going on with their lives.
Oh, wow.
I became so addicted to this game. I can't play it anymore.
I mean, it sounds like a pretty good representation of
yes. And that's what I think is that Thomas Campbell really, he proved that we are actually a sim. And then when you think about meditation, this is how I teach people about meditation, is that we are not that avatar. We are the person that is playing that avatar. We're playing the game. And that's where the witness comes from. That's where Buddhists talk about becoming a witness to your thoughts. Wow. So it is literally looking at yourself, looking at that avatar, looking at the way that you have designed your avatar, and then discovering that you are not that. You are not the video game.
Oh, that is huge.
But you can put into that video game interesting conversation. You can put into that video game a promotion at a job. Right. You can put into that video game whether you want to have children or not. And then from the witness standpoint, you get to experience that thing without actually having any harm to yourself. You are still the witness.
What an incredible way to look at this human existence. And, you know, we look at such a literal form of existing every day. And, you know, we sit in traffic and we drive to work and we cook our dinner and we throw our laundry in and we go through all of these very physical tasks. But what you're discussing is so very much energy and the soul from within, and the fact that we exist not only in this moment, but we have existed before and we will exist in the future. And it really emphasizes the fact that there's no beginning or end. That's big.
It is big. And people that say that they can't meditate, all they have to do is really think about that, because what you just talked about is a meditation.
Wow.
It is that thought process. It is going deeper into what we are thinking about. One of my favorite meditations is when you close your eyes and you notice your thoughts, and you finally recognize that those thoughts are coming from a specific direction. And the first time that I experienced this, I was working with Jack Cornfield and in one of his meditation classes, and I was just absolutely mesmerized by the fact that my thoughts were coming in from the right side of my head.
Wow. So you could almost like locate them coming in.
So there was a location. And that is also in science, that has been proven in science, that our consciousness is not local. So the Nobel Prize in 2022 was awarded to these scientists that actually discovered and proved that consciousness, our consciousness, is non-local.
Oh, that's incredible.
So it's not in our brain.
That's incredible.
It's not who we are. It is out here somewhere, and that it is coming through us.
You're a channel.
Passing through us. Yes, that we are a channel of that consciousness. And that whatever that channel is, that, you know, I think of us as like a cell phone.
Right.
And not, you know, not a radio, but as a cell phone, because you can call someone else, you can be on their frequency, you can be in that tower and have these conversations as a channel. Right. You are not just a radio receiving, but you are actually able to call out to this existence, to this other part of your existence. And you have the capability to do that.
I don't think you understand how deeply I love this stuff. Because again, as someone who is very logical and scientifically rooted, but also so woo-woo and spiritual. And I don't say woo-woo is a compliment. I exist in a state of incessant manifestation and delusion, and I prefer it that way.
Healthy delusion.
Healthy dose of delusion every day. But to hear you discuss just the most basic tenets of meditation is this starting point. When you and I met for the first time at the Nurse Boss Summit last summer in North Carolina.
God love Tammy Lewis.
Tammy Lewis is the reason we are sitting here together today. She's another, massive inspiration.
Yes.
You were the keynote, and we sat in the audience and listened to you guide us through a meditation. And you could hear a pin drop in that room. Nobody was on their cell phone. Nobody was clamoring to leave the room. Nobody was going to the bathroom. And I remember I was sitting next to my best friend, Christina, who you've met there, Chrissy, my Chrissy, and you also have a Chrissy. And we looked at each other after you spoke and we said, holy shit, she really gets it. She not only gets what we've experienced as healthcare providers, but also what we are capable of compounding the resilience in our everyday lives.
Yes.
Because you are a master in resilience.
I think we all are. I think that resilience is one of those things that when we look at everyone's journey, every single person has resilience just waking up and getting up in the morning. Because
just getting out of bed.
Getting out of bed. Like, it takes effort, like genuine effort. I don't actually know anyone that wakes up and is like, woohoo, let's let's go.
Right.
Oh, let's go.
Right.
Without practicing that.
Right.
Like, who does that without someone telling them to act or to be like that? Because I think that the normal thing is to wake up and think, holy shit, here's another day where I need to do this thing and do this other thing and do the next thing. And that sense of resiliency, I think for every person is different. And then it becomes a mindset. The way that I have discovered to help me with those moments of waking up every day is to meditate in the morning. And it sets things right, but people really think about meditation, or those who don't meditate.
Right.
I'm sure you meditate.
Meditation has changed my life. Meditation is the reason I have learned the art of energetics and manifestation, and having this episode, meeting you, speaking at that event, aligning with you is because I meditate.
Yes. What is your process of meditating?
So when I started a number of years ago, it was during the height of COVID. And I had always been somebody who was a very naturally positive and joyful person. Nursing changed me and life changed me. And I lost a large part of who I was through true burnout and the trauma of being in the cardiovascular ICU, trying so desperately to make change, not dealing with the emotional baggage in a really healthy way, and then jumping into graduate school for anesthesia. And then bam, the world shuts down during a global pandemic. Yeah. And then bam, divorce. And then bam, mom is very sick. All of those things came to a head, and I started to recognize the fact that I didn't know who I was anymore. And I've spoken about this before, but people who are high functioning when they're depressed and have acute depression, it's very easy to fool the world. You can
stop masking.
Very easy to still be a stellar student and a great clinician and to show up. But it's at the end of the day where you feel nothing at all. And I started to realize I was living an out-of-body experience. And I felt like the world shutting down. Literally March 13th, the world shut down. My life was in shambles. I was hitting absolute rock bottom. I thought we were all going to die during this pandemic. And I said, I need to make a fucking change.
Yeah.
So at the lowest of low points, I discovered, just let me figure out how to get 5 minutes of my brain not going. I need to sleep at night. I need to get through this. And I started guided meditation, which at first I said, I'm wasting my time. And then I realized my head would hit the pillow and I would fall asleep faster. So then I started doing it in the morning. I would set my alarm for 3:00 in the morning before clinical.
Oh my gosh.
Instead of 3:15.
Girl.
So at 3:00, I would give myself 15 minutes to just try to clear my mind. And that evolved into, okay, now I can start doing this on my own. And I incorporated things like, and again, it may sound like woo-woo bullshit, but affirmations and manifestation. They work. And it shifted my entire energy, returned to who I know myself to be.
You know, affirmations are really the same thing that they use for mantras. Same thing.
Just a different name.
Yeah.
Just a different name. So for me now, I am religious in meditating twice a day, every morning and every evening before bed. And I'm highly conscious of sleep hygiene. I work really, really hard to ensure that before bed, there's no cell phone, there's no TV, there might be music, but the world will never stop. The world will never slow down, and your problems they won't just cease to exist because you learn how to meditate, but you learn how to coexist with them.
Yeah. Yeah. And you learn to see them as the witness.
Oof.
And that...
Oh, I'm covered in goosebumps.
And that is what is different when you start to meditate, is you see things as the witness. That doesn't mean that you don't respond or react or, you know, you can still like be an idiot.
Right, sure.
But you actually start to understand that you were an idiot.
Right.
Faster.
You find that
faster.
balance.
Yes.
So how has travel, how have destinations around the world impacted your spiritual practice?
I think what has impacted me most is that the world became very small.
Oof, yeah.
And understanding that you're not just witnessing yourself and your own journey, but you are in tandem with millions of people who are also experiencing their own journey. And being in different cultures and watching the way that they see the world, let's just go with Bali.
Yeah.
Every single family has a temple, and their lives are built around spirituality. And they don't push this on anyone. This isn't like, okay, this is what you have to do. It became part of their lives. And it was so interesting when I went to one of the homes of the guides that I was working with. And we went to the temple, and I was actually standing outside of the temple, just on a concrete platform. And a woman went by with these flowers that were on a tray, these huge flowers. And she went by, and it was almost like a breeze that I felt, but it was like the energy, I can even like feel it now. My hands are tingling. Yeah. But it was like I could feel the way that the flowers were experiencing life, and watching this woman carry these flowers. And after she went by, I asked the guide, like, what are those flowers for? Like, what is that? Like, that was just intense. That was really intense. And they said, well, they bless those flowers. Those are offerings that we do every single morning through meditation. And each one of those flowers, they were going to honor some part of the spirit of Mother Earth. And I thought, you know, this is something that we don't grow up with. No. We don't experience those things. Even if you're in organized religion, our culture here in America is not set up that way. No, it just isn't. No. And so
there's such a sense of the combination of stillness and presence, and how it goes hand in hand with spirituality and family and collegiality and work. It just, at the very center of all the spokes of this wheel is that sense of spiritual presence. And it's incredibly overwhelming in a good way. And it can feel almost the dichotomy between life in the United States. And then you go to Bali. You know, you and I obviously had spoken. I just spent the month of April this year in Bali on my second true solo trip, but the first time I ventured around, you know, the other side of the world on my own. And there was this just absolute sense among the people of being warmly welcomed without being impressed upon for anything.
Yes, absolutely. Absolutely. I think travel and doing solo travel also is a meditation within itself. Oof. Just sitting in the airport by yourself, sitting on an airplane by yourself, not having an interaction with other people unless there's a choice
Right.
of having those interactions.
Right.
And just the idea that we really are here solo. We are here solo.
We come in solo and we leave solo.
Yes.
That's a fact.
Even though we are so connected,
right.
The fact is that we are here specifically to have that feeling of being solo.
Oof.
Because in the afterlife, in the in-between, and after talking to so many near-death experiencers, we don't have the experience of separateness once we cross over.
Oh, that's incredible.
We know everything that we need to know. We
Right.
have access to everything that we need to know when we cross over. And we are also together with everyone. So we want to be here to be solo. So it's the perfect representation of why we're here.
When you frame it that way, it actually just makes it so empowering to feel comfortable with yourself.
Yeah.
And within your being. And I think so many people struggle just in general with how we don't identify as individuals without thinking about who we are connected to. I am a mother. I am a sister. I am a partner. I am a whatever.
I am a sim.
Right. I am a sim in this simulation. Yes. But truly, we identify in terms of who we are in relation to someone else.
Yes.
Instead of, I am this entity seeking whatever my soul's purpose is on this journey, whether that brings discomfort for growth or whether that brings really beautiful manifestations of what it is that I desire. It's incredibly powerful to think of how when you can create a sense of peace within yourself in spite of whatever you've been through, and know that to be solo and to have these moments of solitude that are really beautiful is not the same as being lonely.
Yeah. I was also just thinking about how energy, like the feeling of energy was so different in Bali. Also different in other places that I have visited. Even someplace like Sedona, you can feel the energy is very much different. And when we say those things, when we say energy, all of us are able to feel energy. But I remember when I first studied Reiki, I did not feel a difference in the energy. It was very interesting because here I was going through this course of learning Reiki, and the people around me were like, "Oh my God, can you feel that?"
They seem to have a very visceral reaction.
Yeah. And they were describing how they felt it, and I just thought either
they're faking.
Either this is just bullshit,
right?
Or I'm broken in some way.
Damaged. I can't
I don't know how to do this. I don't have a gift to be able to do this. So, and I won't tell the long story and but I actually did not feel energy or experience the different parts of energy that I experience now at that time. I actually went to a labyrinth. It's called the Crystal Labyrinth.
Oh, that's incredible.
It's one of the largest labyrinths. I think it is the largest labyrinth in North America. And this labyrinth had 1,000, I believe it was 1,000 crystals and geodes this size that were buried or set along the Crystal Labyrinth. And I walked this Crystal Labyrinth, and as I was probably a quarter of the way through it, and I tried to do it mostly with my eyes shut, or at least, feeling through it. And all of a sudden, I realized that I was feeling the rays of sunshine. So how the rays come through the clouds, and I could see the ray, and I could put my hand through the ray, and you could feel the difference. Now, this wasn't about heat.
Right.
This was about this tingling sensation.
Right.
And then I realized that if I put my hand near a plant and then pulled my hand away, there was a difference in being close to that plant. And then when I was closer to the leaves or the grass, and all of a sudden I was opened up to this world of understanding that it's always been there. I've always been able to feel it. I was always able to experience it, but it wasn't even like someone taught me how to do it. It was just like all of a sudden I was open for it.
That's incredible.
And so when I went to Bali, just touching down on the plane and getting off the plane, there was a rush of energy. Now, I mean, yes, we can talk about the word woo-woo all you want.
Sure.
But that energy, you know, I know that others who have experienced this understand what I'm talking about, but what I'm truly saying is that every single person has the capacity to understand that energy, because that's all that we are. And when you look at us, I mean, let's go back to quantum physics.
Yeah.
When you look at us and when you see us under a microscope,
vibrating particles, baby.
That's all it is.
We're
like
just
all these
vibrating
tiny
particles.
Little tornadoes that are vibrating together. And once you realize that your hand is passing through that energy, or the energy that we are giving off, then you start to really open up your world to so many different things.
First of all, it's a monumental conclusion to come to that makes you recognize the fact that literally I am no different from this microphone or this plant or this chair.
Yeah.
And
this is not even a real plant.
I mean, it's not. So
its
energy is a little different.
I want it to be a real plant, but it can have energy.
On our next episode, Amy, I promise I will have a real plant front and center for you, so that we can have you evaluate the energy of the living being that's there with us. But it is incredibly empowering to think that what you're saying essentially is this is not something that's unique and makes you special, but that we are all capable of this. That's huge. That's an incredible conclusion to come to.
And we're also all capable of slowing down our thoughts. We are also, people that say that they cannot meditate, they can meditate. Yeah. They just haven't been taught how to meditate in a way that is beneficial for them. And I think that is, that's the biggest thing for me, is that if I could teach the world to meditate in the way that I didn't learn right away how to meditate in a way that was beneficial for me, guided meditations really work. But that is where your entire life really opens. That is where you can start taking different steps. And even when I have had readings before, I've had tarot readings, I've had energy readings, I've worked with different gurus. Number one thing every single time that they say to me is, did you meditate today? Because I might have only taken 5 minutes that day, or I might have only taken, or I allowed myself to not do my rituals that day. And
so it truly dictates the course of
your
absolutely
day. Does. It absolutely does. And I can meditate while driving.
Oh, that's incredible.
And I think that is what other people don't understand, is that meditation isn't necessarily going to the gym. Here it is.
Right.
Meditation, now you can meditate while you're at the gym.
Right.
You can meditate while you're listening to music. You can meditate while you're mowing the lawn. You can meditate. However, those particular things are not meditation. So
there is a distinction.
There is a distinction, and there is a difference. And the difference is mindfulness. The difference is
one of my favorite.
Yes. It's being mindful that I am doing this task. And as I'm doing this task, I am witnessing that I'm having thoughts about this task.
How much has the intentionality of mindfulness now impacted the way that you shape the future and the way you see your path progressing?
I am at a place right now, I don't ever like to think about levels. So many people will say, you know, I'm trying to be at a higher frequency, or I want to reach a higher level.
Yeah.
I prefer to think about things as expansion. You aren't going up where you are going up above other people. And I think that there is this idea that once you start studying spirituality, that, you know, there's the master Reiki, there's a master of whatever it is, and that somehow they are spiritually higher, superior to other spiritual people. And what I believe is that it's more about expansion. And where I am right now in my expansion, I have found that I am learning how to use certain gifts that I picked up along the way that I have not necessarily been practicing.
Right.
So I am stopped for a moment. I am vibrating in place.
In situ. You're here, and your cells are dancing here and now where they are. I mean, I think that's I think it's, not only is it beautiful for you to acknowledge that and to know that you've expanded to a place where right now you need to absorb whatever is going on in this moment.
Yes.
And we are so good at constantly forward thinking that we refuse to embrace this moment in time.
Yes. Yes.
And even just us sitting here right now in a studio in Miami, after having a day yesterday together filled with just pool time in the rain, a delicious Cuban meal in the evening.
And mezcalitas.
Just knowing that sometimes that is the gift. Being able to sit and chat and reminisce and laugh and have girl talk with the people that you love is the gift. You don't need to go above and beyond every single moment, because that is what it's all about. Sitting in this chair right now with you is the gift. This is the manifestation of so many other things that have come together. And you have this not only fascinating, because that's not even the right word, it's inspiring, but it's also a tale of you can overcome and you can advance and you can achieve, but you can maintain humility and grace and reality. And it's your vulnerability through all of it that I think has shown all of us who meet you and connect with you that being in a room with you feels like a safe space. It feels like a safe space.
Thank you. Thank you for saying that.
And my hope is that you'll share a little bit with us about the book that you're working on.
You know, it's funny, the book that I'm working on, it's such hard work. And because of that, I am in a space right now where I'm not, which is very interesting. And I think that people are constantly trying to better themselves. I am not in a place in my life where I'm trying to better myself. Even through writing, I'm not trying to expand more through my writing. The book that I'm working on right now is about my spiritual journeys, but it's also about nursing, and it's about my journey with nursing. And I've decided to take this book to a place of rawness and to a place of talking about when I have really made mistakes, and not in nursing, but in life. Yeah. Also in nursing.
Yeah.
But in life, where I was a really shitty partner to my ex-husbands when I was doing things that I was not proud of. I think that so many times people want memoirs where they're talking about things that are extremely interesting about essentially their interactions with other people. Right. And I did some really shitty things in my life. Yeah. And there's things that I'm not proud of. And there were so many times when I was just like so nervous that I was going to start talking about those things and that people would think differently of me.
Trust me, I've been there.
Yeah.
I completely understand. It feels like you have to stifle your creative process.
Yes.
Because you don't want to hurt anyone's feelings.
Yes. And for me, talking about the abuse in my childhood, I remember really, really pushing back on not wanting to be raw about that, to gloss over it, because my abuser is still alive. Yeah. And I realized that I was still in a space of trying to protect my abuser and also to remain within the denial of my family. Right. And I don't want to be there. And this isn't even about trying to help other people through it. I'm not writing a book to help other people through anything. I am writing a book to put it out there essentially as my diary, to say, hey, I was kind of a shit person, and yet all of these really amazing things happened, and there's a reason that all of those really amazing things happen, and that is because I decided that I wanted to work on my mental health and expansion.
Wow. I mean, it's okay. I need to take a moment, just because as somebody who has written so personally about my own circumstances, there is this constant desire, especially from a creative space and a productive space, where it feels like you need to be of benefit to serving others. And sometimes the most honest account of your own growth is simply by saying exactly the way things happened for me.
Yes. And that's so fucking hard.
It is so fucking hard.
It is.
And not only is it so fucking hard, you have to live with the idea that, like it or not, public validation has to mean nothing to me.
Yeah.
I need to be so comfortable with my own journey and sharing it with others that whether they read it or not is not the reason it needed to exist. It needed to exist because I had a story inside of myself and it needed to come out.
Why are we compelled to then put it out there in the public? That is also a question that I have for myself. Why are we compelled to do that? Is it through really wanting validation? Is it through wanting to do that book tour? Yeah. Is it wanting to have some type of notoriety? And what I say is, so fucking what if it is? Yeah. It might be.
It's true. Both things can exist.
Yeah, it might be.
Right.
It might be because, maybe, it is the dream of so many people to be like, yeah, I did that thing. Look at how many people read that thing.
Right.
And why isn't it okay for me to say, oh, I did that. Listen, and a lot of people liked it. And how fucking cool is that?
Amy, I wrote my first book as a bucket list item. I had no idea what I was doing. I had just I had been accepted into the University of Pennsylvania nurse anesthesia program, which I declined. Because yeah, I know. Everybody, I know. And your face and your reaction was what everyone around me did the same thing. They said, "Are you crazy? You'll be set for life. Are you crazy? You'll be set for life." I got a phone call while I was at work from my mom's doctor that there was a mass on her lung. And I had 2 critically ill patients. I recall distinctly one of them was receiving blood. The other one was still very unstable. We were very busy. We were very short. And it happened to be during a time when all of my very best friends who still are parts of my life were also working in the trenches with me in the ICU. And I got pulled into a room and I just had an absolute panic attack on a garbage can in an empty room that was going to be filled with an admission. And my head nurse came and said, "You're going home. We called you a ride." And I, of course, insisted that I finish and that I had blood running and that I need to go take care of whatever because we are what we are. And she said,
"It's what we do.
It's what we do." And she said, "Absolutely not. I'm getting your assignment covered. You go." And fast forward to having a radical lobectomy that everyone said, "It's going to be cancer, it's going to be cancer, it's going to be cancer." And at this point, my mom had already been through treatment once years before. And she looked at me and said, "I want you to know, if it's cancer, I'm not treating it." And I said, "Okay, we'll get there when we get there. Let's do surgery first and we'll see." So we went to Memorial Sloan Kettering, top in the world. And it was 3:00 in the morning. And I sat in her post-operative ICU bed where she had a chest tube the size of a garden hose. And nobody really believed how much pain she was in. So I was there advocating for many, many hours until an amazing provider finally got her the PCA that she needed. And long story short, I started making a list, and I wrote a list, and it was her eulogy. And then I threw it out. And then I had written down on a piece of paper, goals by the age of 30. And I wrote down, I want to write a book. It's a bucket list item. So I deferred my spot and I said, I don't know what's going on at home. I need to be around with my family. I started writing a book, which I did in 3 months. No idea what I was doing. I'd go to Starbucks on my days off and just write. And in the interim, they had sent the specimen for massive testing, and no response, no answer, no response, no answer. 3 months later, we get a call that they had sent the specimen to the Mayo Clinic, who somehow said, "We have no idea how. We genetically tested over and over and over again to be sure, but it's benign."
What?
So I wrote a book as a bucket list item. I wrote it for nobody else. I wrote it because I felt like it had to be done and I wanted to do it, and nobody would read it but mom and dad, and it'll be a cute little thing that I do. And then 250,000 paperbacks later, somehow that's just how it is. So for you sharing your story and your journey, whether it's for public validation or because you just fucking want to do it, either way, it's going to make an impact.
I know it'll make an impact on me.
And isn't that the most important reason?
It is. It is. Absolutely. Yeah. And working with Alea Dow, who wrote the 7 Cups of Consciousness, one of the most amazing things she taught me is to be focused on my own journey. If it is joy that is part of my journey, that I am seeking joy, that's amazing. If I'm seeking peace as my journey, that's amazing. That's what my journey is. To look at another person and tell them that you want to send them joy can actually be an interruption in what their journey is. What is their actual journey?
That's incredible.
It could be that they want to suffer through something.
Yeah.
And that is part of why they are here.
Right.
So
you're better suited to wish them growth.
Yes. So this book is, I needed to remind myself, this book is for me to put it down in words. And also I get to work with Charles Graeber, who wrote The Good Nurse.
Yeah, that's incredible.
So working with him is, and within that process, he's so amazing. Right. And just the experience of that itself. And yeah, why not have author on tack it on, baby. Yep. Why not? Why not have that?
Absolutely. Best-selling author. And I'm certain
that's what I would love.
I'm certain of that. You know, when I wrote the book about my mom when she passed, I wrote that book in 10 days.
What?
10 days. Actually, technically I worked 4 days, so it was 6 days. But it was a 10-day period. Wow. I channeled.
Now that's channeling.
I channeled.
That is for 100%. That's channeling.
I channeled that book, and I know that for certain. And even though it's something that has helped others, I know for sure I wrote that for me.
Yeah,
that was closure.
Yeah,
that was grief. That was searching for peace and coming to terms with things that I didn't know what to expect. And I wrote it so closely after her passing that I had no idea how shitty the milestones would be. I hadn't experienced a first Christmas or a first birthday or a first anniversary of her passing yet. But in that moment, it was exactly what I needed. And sometimes the stories that we birth have so little to do with what, Barbara on Amazon reviews thinks. Because for me, it mattered. And it felt like a release. And when you enter these creative spaces, like when I was in Bali for the month and I wrote 153 pages of a new book in 7 days, you don't do that without some sense of, this is my purpose. There's a reason I'm doing this. And I have no question that your book and your story and your journey that combines all of these different phases of your life and who you are as a person. Because it's so easy to look at you and say, you're a hero. But in your own eyes, you say, I'm so much more than that. I'm a hero for this, but I'm a shitty person for this. But I've got titles that mean nothing, because at the end of the day, I am everything and nothing at the same time. I can't wait to read the damn book.
Yeah. Me too.
You're like, in fact.
I know. I feel like now I want to read it too.
Do you journal?
No. Oh my gosh. Journaling is like, it's like my weird kryptonite.
How funny.
I never journaled, and I know why. And not to keep, I keep going back to this about my childhood, but I had so many secrets to keep. And I did not want someone discovering my secrets.
Yeah, for sure.
And I didn't journal also as I was older and became an adult, because I had a lot of secrets. And I wasn't necessarily living an honest life. I didn't want anyone to discover that.
Yeah.
I wasn't living a life that I was proud of.
Yeah.
And
so sharing your truth even for yourself.
Yes, exactly. Yeah. But I, my God, if somebody actually discovered my journal and figured out who I really was.
And I mean, if you want to talk about true growth and acceptance of that, now you're doubling down and you say, I have a book.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I've saved up.
It's decades of journaling now coming. Wow,
I've saved
really
up
incredible.
All of these secrets to finally say, I am a culmination of all of these secrets.
Right.
And these secrets, it's not about whether they're worth telling.
Yeah.
It's just that I am pieces of a puzzle, and each one of those puzzle pieces is important, because it's who I am. It's the sim I built.
Right.
I am the sim that I built.
That's an incredible thing. The fact that it all became this culmination now. And now you feel like you have progressed and you have evolved in your spiritual state to a point where you can say, I can openly let this burning secret that has lived inside of me out. And that's progress.
I remember when the movie The Good Nurse was starting to film, and we read the script for the first time. Charles Graeber, the author of The Good Nurse, we read the script, and both of us thought there was something really lacking in that script. And we both thought the same thing, that they made me look too good. They made me look
too nursey nurse.
Not just nursey nurse, but that I had an angelic quality about me. And both of us said to the director, you need to dirty this up. Amy is not that person. Amy is very complicated. Amy is very nuanced. Amy is not this one-dimensional person who just was, you know, I wasn't the person that they were going to portray as this victim who just discovered something and of course just did the right thing. No, like there were a lot of things that were going on in my life during that time, and it needed to be dirtied up because that was who I was.
For the sake of pure authenticity.
Yes, absolutely.
So what should we rename you? Are we going to rebrand you the real nurse?
No, we're rebranding me the naughty nurse.
Oh, I mean, truly my favorite kind.
The naughty
nurse. If there's ever a brand that, you know, I subscribe to, the naughty nurse is 1000%. You are it, baby. You are it.
Naughty. I
love it. I know. Well, and now this is turning into an entirely different podcast, which is fine. It is called Sleeping with Sonja. So whatever you want to say, it's fair game.
The naughty nurse.
The naughty nurse. Welcome to Sleeping with Sonja.
With the naughty nurse.
You can subscribe on OnlyFans.
I know. I'm looking at my feet. Can I sell that? Can I do that?
Listen, the sky's the limit, baby.
We've all got to eat. We've all got to eat.
Inflation is inflationing. You do you, boo.
Absolutely.
There's no judgment. And I think that's what I love most about you as well, is I can say nothing that will shock or offend you. And that's in the most receptive way. It's not that you're like, been there, done that. It's that you embrace people for who they are in that moment.
Yeah. 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 You know what? Absolutely. Absolutely. And it really isn't that, oh, geez, I've been there. It is, I can imagine me being there. Like,
I can put myself in their shoes.
I could have been there.
Yeah.
Like, that could have been me.
Yeah. Right. And it's in a world and in a space where, you know, I think it's very funny. We hardly talked about healthcare or nursing, which actually I sincerely love. I love the fact that we've spoken very little about the true profession itself, because there's so much more to us than what we are as a role. But in a world such as nursing, where oftentimes you can feel so judged by others, and it's whether it's your
especially by our colleagues,
particularly by our colleagues in a very, you know, woman-dominated profession where there is such toxic mindset and lateral violence that happens. It's a beautiful thing when you come across someone who is a member of this sort of tribe who allows you to freely exist as whoever it is that you are.
I was thinking about when I was working CBICU is that there was so much competition because there was so much autonomy. So it was almost like the nurses had to justify what their decisions were by saying that the other nurse made a bad decision. Right. And it was just such a weird atmosphere of
It's a very victim response, I think.
It is. It's just such a competitive world within that unit that it was not for me. I loved that you feel like you've made it to the upper echelon.
Sure. I mean, of course. I mean, there's something to be said.
Yes, that's how you feel.
There's a
like
strange sense of status that comes with it.
Absolutely. Right. But then you get there and you're like, fuck, these people are mean.
Let me tell you. I've written books about it, Amy. Trust me.
Yeah.
I know. And it's just again, I don't know if it's just a matter of, when you're truly trauma bonding with others. And also when you feel like you're being dumped on by people who are quote unquote higher in the hierarchy, and therefore I'll do to you what's been done to me. And that mentality is pervasive in healthcare. It's not just in nursing. It's I always feel for medical students and residents, for everything that they endure.
Lots of hazing.
There's a whole, we'll have to do an entire new episode on just systems in general and healthcare. But to know that there are people like you who have entered this world and used this profession to elevate to such a level where you are so many different things that are so much more than just a good nurse.
And a naughty nurse.
And a naughty nurse at that. Amy, where can our listeners find you? What's the best place for us to look?
AmyTheGoodNurse.com is the best place, but on Instagram, I am Amy the Good Nurse.
Great. And then if you search for Amy the Naughty Nurse, we're not sure whether that's actually
that may be an OnlyFans account.
That may be a different site.
Yeah.
It's Amy the Good Nurse.
Amy the Good Nurse.
Who happens to be a naughty nurse and not the other way around.
Yes.
Amy, thank you sincerely for being here today.
Thank you, Sonja. Thank you.
Literally one of my favorite human beings on the planet. And I'm so thankful for you.
Same.
Likewise. And we'll have you back when the book launches. Well, we'll just have you back whenever. Just come back anytime. I'll meet you wherever you want to meet, and we'll record. We're here in Miami. I'll come to you. You come to me.
Yeah, why are we here in Miami?
I mean, why not?
Yeah.
That's the honest answer.
Yeah.
Why not?
And now, salsa dancing.
And now, part 2 on Amy the Naughty Nurse, salsa dancing with Sonja. Thank you all so much for listening once again. And thanks for sleeping with Sonja.